My daughter didn't understand at the time, being 10 and autistic. She's like, why can't we go in there? I want to go in there. I want to eat. And so we have to start explaining economics to a 10-year-old who's not quite ready to hear about it yet. We went to another place down the street, to one of her other restaurants that she would eat at. And my wife and I started talking, and we're like, why did this business go out of business? They had everything you could possibly want. They had the Houston Texans name from the NFL. They had a great location. They had a great bar. They had great food. They had a great staff. They had great everything. So why did they go out of business? And then it dawned on us, they just didn't do any marketing. Their social media wasn't up to par, which is one of the best ways that you can do it in the restaurant industry. And then that all of a sudden is when the light bulb went on and Illumination Marketing was born, because my wife and I figured out that we had this skill set from doing this for almost 20 years at that point, that we could help these businesses, these smaller local businesses, still compete and make their dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. I am your host, Gene Lytle. I have a special guest, James Kaatz. He is CEO, co-founder of Illumination Marketing. He's got over 20 years experience, a family man as well. James, welcome. How are you? Where are you calling from today?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing great. I am from Houston, Texas. I'd say beautiful Houston, Texas, but it's probably not the most beautiful city in America. But we do have World Cup going on right now, so that's always fun.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Are you a soccer fan?
Yeah, why not? It's a game of finesse. It's beautiful to watch. It's poetry in motion.
There you go. Do you have a team you root for? The U.S. or?
Yeah, USA.
Okay, perfect. I had to ask.
Yeah, good question. I'm in America. I cheer for America. So
perfect. Well, my son, for some reason, is rooting for Paraguay, who lost to us, and I don't know why, but I don't know where that came from. So it was just kind of funny. So James, you know why you're here. We want to hear some of your strategies, things that you've gone through, how you started in the business. I know it's over 20 years. So I'm hoping you can kind of give us the beginning, where you got started, and what has happened, good and bad, between then and now, and then we'll get into what's happening in today's market. Fair enough?
Yeah, sounds like a great conversation. Let's do it.
Okay, and I know you got some wrestling experience behind you. I want to hear that.
Sure. So I guess we'll start from the beginning, right? Over 20 years of experience in marketing and branding. I actually started out in the entertainment industry. I was a professional wrestler for 8 years, as you kind of just alluded to. But I used to tell people I was a piano player at a brothel because I wanted them to think I had a dignified career. But it taught me so many good things. It taught me about TV and timing and working with other people and thinking on the fly and being able to work within a time frame and a budget, and a lot of great lessons that I still take with me to this day, and especially about how to speak with people and how to influence people, and specifically through body language. But it was a really cool thing. I did it for about 8 years. I wrestled my way through college. It took me all around the United States. I wrestled in multiple states. I was on TV in multiple states. I wrestled internationally. I wrestled tons of famous people. I was a part of WrestleMania 25. So I did a lot of really cool things with it. And we can again, stories for days in that route. We can go there if you want to. Right. But
did you have a certain stage name or something?
I did, which was Chris James, which is my middle name and my first name. Not really, really creative. But, I figured my last name was a little too hard to say for people. So we got that.
I already had problems with it. So yeah.
I simplified it. It either makes me really, really memorable, or people are like, what? So anyway, so I simplified it a little bit. So we went that direction, but I did that for about 8 years. I wrestled my way through college, got a degree in radio and television, and out of Stephen F. Austin State University. I figured out I was beating up my brain for not nearly enough money though. So luckily I had that college education. I fell back and I became a media buyer at an ad agency here in Houston for Fortune 500 companies. And some of my clients include AT&T, SodaStream, Arby's, Sleep Number, FanDuel. I got to help relaunch Zest Soap in Canada. So that was a really cool project. So I worked on a lot of cool things. 2012 was an interesting year to say the least. I know you like to get into some of the setbacks, and we can dive into those as well. But 2012, I got laid off from that agency along with 66% of the company because we lost our biggest client.
Ouch.
And I went to work for the Houston Chronicle for about 6 months, where I then got laid off with about 50% of the people who were working there, which is how I figured out the newspaper was a dying industry. But as so many times in life it was actually a blessing in disguise, because not even a month later, I got a job at an marketing agency that was based in the automotive vertical called Reynolds and Reynolds. I quickly got promoted into management, and I took my section of the company. I helped to take my section of the company from losing 400,000 a year to making just under 2 million in 2 years. And I grew my
Nice.
team from a team of 4 people to a team of 10 people who each had about 10 people under them at any given time. So the span of control went, don't know what you know about automotive. I know, Gene, you know a ton about automotive, but
No doubt.
it's a lot like sports, and that everyone's job is on the line every single month. So if you start off the first 7 days of the month poorly, you have auto dealers calling you out, cursing you out, saying unkind things about you, your character, your family. It's kind of a rough industry, but it was
Yes.
not an industry that was conducive to personal or professional growth anymore. So I ended up getting another job as a marketing executive in the healthcare industry. That industry, it was software as a service and revenue cycle management for community health centers. And it was a great company, still is a great company, and I worked with the owners personally. It was a small-ish company. I was brought in as their marketing executive, and we redid everything from the ground up, right? And so we redid the website, we redid the SEO strategy, we redid the video strategy, and we went from this very antiquated type of medical safe feel to more of a technology-ish type of company. And it ended up being really, really successful, and that they had their most successful year in their 20-year company history after my first year. And, they were great, great people, and forever grateful for the opportunities. And then, the next question is, where does the journey go from there, right? And so, as you mentioned in the intro, my wife and I are a parent to an autistic daughter. She is about to turn 22 years old, but at the time, she was about 10 years old, and being autistic and 10, there's only about 3 places in the entire world that she'd ever go eat. And one of those
Wow.
places was called the Houston Texans Grill here in Houston. And so one day we were going up there. It's on the second floor in City Center, and she runs up ahead of us. And my wife and I aren't running anywhere, so she was up ahead. She gets to the door and she tries to open, and she jiggles it, and it's just locked. And we're like, what's going on? So me and my wife make our way up there, and we see this sign that's taped to the door that said, "Thank you for the last 5 years. We've gone out of business."
Oh no.
And my daughter didn't understand at the time, being 10 and autistic. She's like, why can't we go in there? I want to go in there. I want to eat. And so we have to start explaining economics to a 10-year-old who's not quite ready to hear about it yet. So we went to another place down the street, to one of her other restaurants that she would eat at. And my wife and I started talking, and we're like, why did this business go out of business? They had everything you could possibly want. They had the Houston Texans name from the NFL. They had a great location. They had a great bar. They had great food. They had a great staff. They had great everything. So why did they go out of business? And then it dawned on us, they just didn't do any marketing. Their social media wasn't up to par, which is one of the best ways that you can do it in the restaurant industry. And then that, all of a sudden, is when the light bulb went on and Illumination Marketing was born. Because my wife and I figured out that we had this skill set from doing this for almost 20 years at that point, that we could help these businesses, these smaller local businesses, still compete and make their dreams come true, instead of just building it for big corporations. And so that's when the light bulb went on and Illumination Marketing was born. And that was in about 2017. And since that point, we've helped everything from upstarts with no clients all the way to the big guys like GE Healthcare, Kelsey Siebel, Group One Automotive, Allied Power Group, and everything in between. And this is a really long-winded way of saying that we've actually helped to drive over $350 million in revenue in the last 5 years, and we continue to grow, and
Whew.
we've made several millions for ourselves for the last few years.
Great job.
Thank you.
Very nice. So was it always success everywhere you went, or were there trouble at any time?
Oh, there's trouble at every single point and every single time you ever do, right? So the wrestling was always a big one. I was convinced I was going to be a professional wrestler. I'm 6'2". I'm 245 pounds. I'm a big boy. When I was wrestling, I was about 270, so I was a lot bigger. I had long blonde hair. Everyone compared me to a bigger Chris Jericho,
Okay.
which was always fun. And so I'm like, I started thinking, I'm going to be great, because all these other guys here running around are 5'8" and they're 150 pounds, and they're pretending to be something they're not. Where, I did amateur wrestling in high school. I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu training and all this growing up into the wrestling before I even got there. And then I had the people teach me about the wrestling tactics of the professional wrestling, the hookers and all of that from back in the day, when you actually had to protect yourself because you never knew who would protect you or try to take over. Anyway, so I had my ego, I guess, was blowing up a little bit. I'm like, man, I'm going to do great things with this. And so when I was 18, I had a clinic that we did with someone called Dr. Tom Pritchard. He was in charge of talent relations for the WWE at that point in time. And I'm like, this is going to be it. This is my shot. And, I was 18, 19 years old, and I was a little wet behind the ears, a little green at that point too. And I'm like, this is going to be great. And I've always been fairly athletic. I can still do backflips to this day, a standing backflip. And
Nice.
again, I'm in my 40s and I'm 245 pounds. So like I'm still fairly athletic. But so we go in there and we call this great match. I teamed up with this unbelievably amazing pro named Spiro at the time, Cameron. He was a great guy. And we go out there, and I literally, right before we go out there, I was so nervous. I forgot everything that we ever talked about. And I messed up the entire match. I just went out there and tried to start actually wrestling him, which that dude was significantly bigger than me at that point. But he was a pro's pro, and he kind of guided me through it. And I got to the back, and I was super duper upset. I'm like, I just blew my one chance at making it famous, right? And so Dr. Tom Pritchard, he comes up and he finds me, and he goes, hey, we all shit the bed. Don't worry. I don't know if I can curse on this podcast.
You're fine.
Bleep it if you need to. He goes, we all mess up, right? It's not about messing up. It's about going forward. And it's about what you can do tomorrow and not necessarily what you did today. And it was that advice from Dr. Tom Pritchard that I took with me going forward for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. And so I went through a couple of more training camps. I had a couple of tryout shots. I wrestled some really, really famous people. Everyone loved me. I had chances to go on international tours and all of this, but that's one of my favorite stories too. So with the wrestling, so I was starting to pick up some steam. I was starting to get respected by some of the veterans, all the guys that you've heard of. And there was one guy out of Kansas City, a promoter, and what he used to do is take guys around the world and tour army bases and military bases. And we would put on wrestling shows, and then we would come back. And there was about to be one in the Middle East. Actually, it was going to be Malaysia is where they were going to go. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. It's summer. It's my last year of summer. So I have a break on my senior year of college. I can go hop on this tour for 3 months, wrestle all these famous people. I'll be the only non-famous person on this card. The promoter loves me to death because I'm such a good hand. I call him and he goes, if you only would have called me 8 hours ago, I just booked my last person 8 hours ago. He goes, I would have had you in a heartbeat. And I'm like, and it's one of those just moments that just completely deflate you, right? You're like, I've been working all this time for all of this stuff, and we got there. That's a couple just from the wrestling. There's another one. I was at WrestleMania 25. I was an extra for WrestleMania 25. I was actually John Cena for like 60 seconds, but in pure John Cena fashion, you couldn't see me. But it was an interesting experience. But I didn't go there to be a part of WrestleMania. I went there to meet the head of talent relations because I knew I could get backstage after the show. I actually thought I would be backstage, but they put us in a separate tent behind the arena that day. So we didn't have access to go around. So I'm like, screw it. I'll just wait till the end of the show and go back there. There's not going to be any security to walk back there. And so I did that and I did the show, and I finally went back there and I met a guy at the point named Ty Bailey. He was in charge of talent relations, and he goes, you're a big boy. Let's see what you do. And he gave me his number and he goes, if you just call me, we'll set you up for something. And then it was all of those deflating things, just like one on top of another. I go, oh my gosh, I can't even do this even if I got here. I've always been a little bit overweight. I've never had a six pack. So I'm like, I can't even do this. So my confidence just went out the window. So I actually cut myself off at my knees from a really great opportunity. I never called that guy.
Oh, no.
When he said he would start working on it. So there's always these things that will get in your way. And this is just one example. I can give you through marketing. I can give you this through the firefighting EMT side of things that I did. I can do this through our current marketing agency. I have tons of stories where
here's what I want to hear before we go to, because I want to hear more about the EMT side.
Yeah.
But did you have to worry about, or I'm sure you worried about it, but did you experience getting hurt in the wrestling? Because I'm sure that's got to be a tough area is trying to stay healthy.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I played sports my entire life growing up, and I played every sport imaginable. I played baseball, I played soccer, I played football, I did amateur wrestling in high school, I did, everything that you can imagine growing up. And in my first 2 years of professional wrestling, I got far more injured than I did in like 12 years of playing sports growing up.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a brutal thing, right? It's entertainment, but you're falling on board and concrete and steel. Like, it's not easy on your body. And all of the people that we work with at a lower level aren't necessarily as trained as much as the pros are. And even the pros hurt people. But so I got dumped on my head. I got dumped on my shoulders. People didn't catch me when I was jumping off the top rope to concrete. I chipped both my elbows. I'm pretty sure I tore my meniscus in 2004. I got so hurt in my first 2 years of professional wrestling. And that's when I decided I shouldn't do any of the flippy floppy stuff anymore. And I should probably stay on my feet.
Got it. Are you paying for it today?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have neck issues to this day. At some point, I'll have to have a neck surgery, as it is fun. But I try to keep pretty good care of myself these days, as far as I keep a little bit of extra weight on me, but eat anti-inflammatory diets, Mediterranean diets, things like that. Keep inflammation down in the body, and then keep going
Got
to
it.
chiropractic weekly. Keep working out 3 to 4 days a week, things like that, just to stay in shape, because when you stop moving is when your body locks up on you.
So what made you pivot into the firefighter EMT? Was that something that you've always wanted to do, or what happened? And then tell me how that life was and why you got out of it, maybe, or how you got into the marketing side.
Yeah, totally. So I was getting burned out on the wrestling part, and me and my buddy were doing it. So we started a band. And then when we were playing in that band, we played in it for a few years, and he and his wife got pregnant. So my tag team partner became my bandmate. And then he and his wife got pregnant. They were going to have a little girl. And so they did in 2011. But when that happened, she had an infection that spread into her body, and it became DIC, which is where your blood clots and thins at the same time, which then transferred into necrotizing fasciitis, which is flesh-eating bacteria. Long story short, she ended up having to have quadruple amputations from having that baby. And they were in the hospital for probably about a year. And I was there with him because he's my best friend. So I was there with them every single day when they were here in Houston. And then they eventually transferred to Dallas, the Parkland unit. Then they went to Boston. But I was with them every day when this started. And every single day, the doctors would come in and tell us, she has less than a 5% chance of living. She has less than a 5% chance every single day, every single doctor. And so we go, okay, that's interesting. And then they would come in and they would tell my buddy, they're like, hey, this is what we're going to give her today. And then he's just such an analytical guy. He started looking up everything they're doing. And it turned out if they would have administered the medicine that they were talking about, it would have killed her that day because there were contraindications. And so they just weren't going to catch it. And so it's like, oh my God, this is almost a daily thing where they will kill somebody just because they didn't necessarily look as far back in the chart as they needed to. And so it's one of those moments that go, oh my God, I want to help people, and this could be a path, and I'm a fairly smart guy. So, what if I could be a firefighter EMT, still do things that are physical, that are fun, or ride a box where if someone calls me, I can help make those really, really quick decisions, which is what wrestling trained me for, and make the right decision that could, potentially save someone's life. And so I'm like, this sounds like a great career path. So I went and I put myself through fire school. And then I figured out at the end of fire school, you had to be an EMT. So I went and put myself through EMT school the next year. And so I became a fully certified firefighter EMT. I finished in the top 10% in both my classes. And then right as I was getting ready to leave the marketing company, the one that worked in the automotive space, they go, hey, James, here, have some more money. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So I'm like, I guess I'll put this off for a little bit. And I started volunteer firefighting this whole time. I was actually the Bel Air Volunteer Firefighter of the Year in 2014, things like that. So I was still doing it. But every time I was getting ready to leave, they would give me more money. And it goes, okay. And then at what point do you leave a job that's paying you decently for a 20-something year old kid to go be a $27,000 a year firefighter, which is what the city of Houston was paying at that time? And I'm like, it just isn't worth it. So I continued to volunteer. I really enjoyed giving back to my community and running into fires and working the EMT. I was a volunteer EMT too, seeing people on their worst days. So this was one of those things. I'm like, so out of everyone who finished fire school or EMT school, the average score was like 73 on a test. And I'm like, so if someone calls 911, it's literally the worst day of their life. It's do or die, right? Do you want that person to be right 7 out of 10 times? Or do you want them to be right 97 out of 100 times? Right? Because there's human error. And I was the 97 out of 100 person. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go take on some of this responsibility. And so I did, and I ran through. I had people die in my hands. I saved lives. I didn't save lives. I had all that going through. And then in 2014 was when I stopped being an EMT because my wife, who I got with in 2013, in 2014, she has autoimmune diseases. And so it was during the Ebola scare of that, we were shooting all the way up and we're trying not to catch Ebola and all of that. And it dawned on me, I'm like, man, if I catch something and bring it back to my fiance at the time, I'm like, I'll kill her. Like, she doesn't have the immune system to fight it off. And so I quit being an EMT in 2014, but I was a firefighter up until 2020. Yeah, 2020. And then we moved and we were too far outside of the volunteer range to still be a volunteer firefighter. So
that's when you jumped back in to the marketing?
No, I started marketing in 2013 for the big corporation, and I haven't stopped since. So
okay, you did that all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the ad agency in 2008. So I've been doing advertising and marketing outside of wrestling for 18 years now. And then if you add the wrestling back in, which is still marketing because you're promoting yourself, you're learning to sell, you're learning all that stuff, right? It's performance, it's marketing as much as it is performance, right? I've been doing that since I was 17 years old. I started that in 2003. So almost 25 years of marketing and advertising and branding experience at this point.
So when you started your own deal, Illumination, tell me how that's got going. Was it instant success, or did you need to build it? What did you have clients you could bring over automatically? How did that work?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I was still the marketing executive at that healthcare company when my wife and I decided we were going to start our marketing agency. And one of the things I figured out I wanted to start doing is I was a foodie at heart. I'm a little overweight, probably from where I should be, not like terribly unhealthy or anything, but it's because I like to eat. I'm a foodie at heart. So I'm like,
you and me both.
Yeah, right. I think most people are. That's why we don't have six packs. We don't starve ourselves. Been there, done there. Don't want to ever do that again, right? So we went to a local Mexican restaurant, which was amazing here in up in the Northwest Houston. And we sat there and we were just kind of secret shopping. I'm like, we're going to pitch this. And my wife is like the ultimate salesperson, by the way. She can sell anyone anything. She just hates to do it. But so she went in, we saw the owners happen to be sitting at that table across from us and they were talking to people and we overheard them. And they were in a marketing meeting. And then when they left that marketing meeting, they didn't have smiles on their faces, which marketing should be the most fun part of business. You get to talk about doing new things and it's creative and it's visual and it's bright and it's colorful if you do it the right way, right? And it influences people to have a good time and you can change people's lives through marketing. And as a business owner, marketing is the only way to grow your business. Like literally there is no other way. It's just letting more people know that you exist. Anyway, so they got up from their meeting. They didn't have smiles and they started going and touching tables like good restaurant owners do. And they came over and they're like, hey, is this your first time with us? I'm like, yeah, totally. And then my wife goes, I just got a question for you. Were you guys in a marketing meeting? And they're like, yes. And we're like, hey, would you be open to exploring just different possibilities of what might be out there? And then you can kind of make up your mind when you have more information. They're like, totally. And so we booked a meeting and then we did our whole pitch. And then I think I had to chase him for like 6 or 8 weeks. And then I finally got him on the phone and then we sat down and we did contracts. And it wasn't even like groundbreaking stuff. It couldn't even pay the mortgage. It was like $1,400 a month or something like that. And then 300 of it was through gift cards to the restaurant. So, but it wasn't necessarily about making money at that point. It was proving concept.
Right.
And it was a great opportunity to start. And so that was our first client. And then, we saw success from day one. In our first month with them, we helped them raise revenues 23.3%. So they saw a very significant increase in our first month. And so that was like proof of concept. We're like, oh my God, we can do this, right? Because my wife and I, we'd done a lot of corporate marketing and other types of things. But so going down to a smaller scale at that point was just a bit of an unknown. And so we figured out that we could do it and we could be successful. And my wife had already quit her job at that point. She's like, we're going to go all in on this marketing company. I'm like, you're crazy. I'm making 6 figures a year and you don't have a job. Like we need to have a little bit more of a foundation. And she said a lot of things about my character that I probably needed to hear, but weren't so kind at the time, but totally true. And so we go, okay, I guess we're going to quit my job and we're going to go all in, no backup plan. And then right before I quit that job, I go, you know what? I'm going to pitch our company, my company I'm working for right now. I know that they don't want to make change quickly. I don't want to leave them up Schitt's Creek without a paddle just because, it could be a bad thing. And so I went and pitched them. And I go, can we continue to do this marketing on a 6-month contract? We'll be independent. You'd pay our agency. You wouldn't pay James anymore. And we can do all this for $8,000 a month. And he goes, James, you mean $10,000 a month, right? I'm like, no, I mean $8,000 a month. And he goes, James, you mean $10,000 a month? And I go, I'm like, yeah, $10,000 a month. And he goes, yes, we'll sign a 6-month contract and then we'll reevaluate where we want to go from there. And
cool.
Yeah, luckily, because that was the most scared I have ever been in my life that day when I did that, because I had no backup plan. We had enough money in the bank account to pay the mortgage for 1 month, so Ooh. It was going to be a tough day if it didn't work out. And he actually took great care of us to make sure that he could help us start our business. Cause he goes, we saw him the other day too, and he's still a great person. But he goes, everyone needs help sometimes. And so this is it. So we're like, great, thank you. So we were lucky that we have never had a month under 10K when we were starting. But that being said, I still had 10 years of experience building up to that point. So no, we didn't necessarily have a safety net, but we made it work because we had to make it work. And we were lucky enough to be in the right position at the right time to make it work.
And so you had that right mindset of no quit attitude, no matter what.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've been that way my whole life. I started working when I was 10. I became a soccer referee making like $35 an hour. And I didn't realize it would take me like 10, 15 years to get back to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But normally kids at that age, 10, 11, 12, will work like one game and then go have their weekend. I'm like, can I have all 8 games? And they'd be like, yes. We've never had someone who wants all 8 games before. I'm like, what else am I going to do on a Saturday? I'm 10 years old, 11 years old. So I've had a pretty strong work ethic since I was very young.
Sweet. So tell me about today's market. What trends do you see happening that may make you pivot or help you in your business? I know AI is probably big in the marketing side. Is that helping you or hindering you? And how are you using it if you are?
Yeah, AI is big in the everything side, right? It's taking over the world. If you've seen The Matrix, it's coming.
Right.
But no, it's been a blessing for us, for sure. And it will be a curse for a lot of other people. AI is a tremendous tool, but it is just that, a tool. Because, if you put garbage into it, you get garbage out of it. It can only be as good as the inputs that it has. And so for people who just go, hey, make me a marketing campaign, it's probably going to put out something generic that's not going to work all that well. But if you go, hey, here's 100 pages of inputs, so you can give me one ad, then it starts to work incredibly well. And so for us, it's been an absolute blessing, because what it has done is it has made labor fairly expendable from a business perspective. So I know I'm going to be the bad guy. I feel like I'm becoming the man here, but become the bad guy. But it's made labor the commodity of the world, right? Where labor used to be the big thing that grew your business. And now we don't have to pay people to do entry-level work. AI can do it for you, and it can do it faster, and it can do it better and more accurately. And it doesn't only work for 6 hours a day, even though you're paying it for 8 hours a day. It works 24 hours a day if you make it work 24 hours a day. And so for us implementing this into our business, we've taken our margins from like 6% a few years ago up to like 24.6% last year, and a little bit higher if you include our salaries and everything and all the dividends and everything we took away from our company. So we're probably in the neighborhood of 52% when you include all of that we take out of our company, which, like I said, a few years ago before AI, we were hovering around 6%. I mean, we were paying our bills, but we weren't millionaires overnight or anything. So for us, it's been a godsend. And how we're using it and integrating it into our business these days, like everyone, we're vibe coding. So we built an app based on my 20 years of experience, which just takes it step by step, process by process, and builds it into an internal app that we have that we're actually going to try and take to market here in the next quarter, that works incredibly well. So it takes all of your business inputs, it researches all of your competitors, it researches Google and Bing and all of these things to get inputs. It creates your customer avatars and your ideal customer profiles for you. It figures out the language that they need to use. It figures out the offer that you need to suggest to them. It figures out your SWOT analysis on where you can and cannot improve. From there, it goes into where it can help you build your website. It can write your blogs for you. It can write your meta ads for you. It can do all of the integrations with everything together. It does local SEO for you. So it's basically replaced all of the processes in our company. And that's why our revenues our margins anyway, are going through the roof. And it also helps our revenues because it opens up us to do other things like sales.
Very nice. It opens up your schedule to do things that matter most.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're still founder-led sales. So, every day we can be selling instead of doing things is positive to our bottom line and top line.
So how long before you think that that's going to be able to come to market?
Hoping a quarter. We'll see.
Okay, nice. I'd like to hear more about that as it happens.
Yeah, when it launches, I'll show you. I'll give you a demo when it launches.
Nice. So your perfect client, what would your perfect client be today? And do you think it's going to change in the next quarter after this launches?
No. So it's going to end up being that program will end up being a separate business at some point, even though we use it as a tool for ourselves. But so that kind of branches off. But the ideal customer profile, right? So we work with service-based businesses making $1 to $10 million a year plus who want to aggressively grow. So if you're, only making $400,000, $500,000 a year, you probably don't have the budget to really move the needle like you want to. So what we start looking for are things like roofing companies or home care companies, anything that's making a lot of money that has a lot of value tied to a customer coming to them. And they go, hey, I want to go from 2 million to 5 million in the next 18 months so I can sell this company for, 5 to 7.5 million. And so that's where we come in and we can really talk business strategy on top of it. And those are our ideal clients. So clients that are making enough money to invest in themselves, but ones that aren't willing to put that $1 million into their marketing yet. So that's kind of our sweet spot right there. But that being said, we have worked with everything from upstarts with no clients all the way to companies making, hundreds of millions of dollars. Our biggest client right now is making about 220 million a year. So we work with everything in between. So we those are our businesses, are those service-based businesses who are ready to aggressively grow.
So which clients, the newer ones, the mid-sized ones, or the ones that are doing very well, is there much difference in how much work you have to put into it? Are the clients to deal with a little differently, or is it kind of the same across the board?
Not really. So it depends, right? So what we do as an agency, 66% of our revenue is SEO driven. And then another good 12% is PPC driven, right? So the majority of what we do is getting found on Google. And so our processes are really the same no matter who it is. And especially with tools like AI now, right? It makes the research so much easier where it used to be all a manual process. And I can take you through some of those, what it looks like from manual processes 4 years ago to what it is today and how different it is. But, it's the same process. So what we do is getting companies found on Google. Google is just a math algorithm. It's never tasted anything. It's never seen anything. It's never experienced anything. It's just a math equation. And so the secret of SEO is just filling in the variables in the way that the math equation needs in order to trust you to balance its equation. And so it doesn't matter if you are a hair salon, and it doesn't matter if you're a roofer. You just have to have the right inputs that it's looking for in order to get the right outputs, AKA getting ranked in and the map pack and getting ranked number 1 to start driving phone calls, which is how we all make money.
Very nice.
The bigger the company gets, it's just the more levels of approvals that you have to go through. And so I'm working with the smaller companies, the $1 to $4 or $5 million companies are usually smaller. And so you can get access to the owner almost right away and be like, hey, could you approve this within 24 hours? And like, totally. And they'll do it, right? And then they see the return from that. For some of the bigger corporations, you go, hey, I created this web page for you that's optimized for all these factors. Can you please have you or your team go through it and make sure that it's factually correct information and aligns with your business goals? And then just give me an approved and we can go forward. And that will take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So that's the difference between working with small and big. But it's the same process, just the communication's a little different.
It's almost better if you're a little smaller, you can pivot faster.
Yeah. Sometimes, but if you're smaller, you don't have the revenue to necessarily make the changes that you need or to pivot as quickly as you need to, i.e. you can't go spend $50,000 on ads if you're a $400,000 a year business unless you have a high risk tolerance, right? So a bigger company, a $10 million a year company goes $50,000 on ads. If you guarantee me a return, go for it. Right. So that's the difference too. We appreciate working with those mid-sized businesses, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, $10 million a year companies, just because that seems to be a real sweet spot between that. We don't have anything. We're risk averse and we need systems. Right. So it's that happy medium between the two.
So on when it comes to goals, when it comes to anything else that in the market trends today that could affect your business, what's next for James?
Oh man. So what's next for James is to get this app up and running because, everybody and their mother is vibe coding things right now. And specifically the SEO marketing space is brutal for software as a service. But I feel just from what I've seen is most of them specialize in one area, which is great. But what our tool is more than just a tool. It's a full strategy. And so what it does is it builds into itself and then it gets the results from what it's built into, which then makes the entire tool run better. So it's going to be a learning tool on top of it. So it puts all of the best practices of 20 years of what I've helped to do to drive over $1 billion in revenue through 20 years of marketing experience and helps to take that guesswork out of it. Right. And so what the idea is that it can replace an entire $1 million worth of marketing team and have one solo operator that can run it. And then you can manage multiple clients from doing it. So that's the next step for James personally. Where Illumination Marketing goes is I think we're competitively positioned in order to continue to grow our company, which is exciting. As AI gets better and better and our tool gets better and better, that means fulfillment gets quicker and quicker. So we only become bottlenecked by our fulfillment strategies, which we're pretty good at because we do marketing for a living, right? So where it used to be constrained by people in fulfillment, it is now constrained by sales and lead gen, which is a really good place to be in for us. So that's what's next for us, is just continuing to grow it out.
Awesome. So here's my favorite question that I always like to ask. You have so many different experiences of coming out of high school and doing the wrestling, doing the EMT, the marketing. If there's one message that you would like our listeners to hear, if they didn't hear anything else at all, there's one message you wanted to push through, what would that be?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question. So the message of today, at least until I change my mind tomorrow, is AI is changing our world by the second. I like to put it this way. Google only has a 9-month roadmap right now because AI is changing their business too quickly. They cannot predict what will happen a year from now. And they're the biggest company in the world with the most intelligence in the world. So if they can't predict it, how are we going to predict what AI is going to do? And what I think AI is doing is making jobs obsolete, right? It is eliminating entry-level positions. So college kids are going to have a really tough time coming out because AI does their job now. So back in my day, we had junior executive levels, right? Where you can get hired on in a company, they teach you the processes, and then you get put to a senior level where you run the processes, and then you get put to a director level where you run a department. Well, that junior level doesn't exist anymore, right? And so that senior level probably won't exist next either. So it's going to be really tough. The people who understand this and can put those processes in place are going to be very, very successful and make a lot of money. And on the flip side, I think that's going to drive up our unemployment rates, and it's going to play havoc in our economy. And so the message is, and even Google and Anthropic and Sam Altman, all these people are saying right now, people use all these AI tools as modules, but where we're really going to is systems and how they can run systems for you. And so the people who understand that gap and the ones who start building the systems are going to be the ones who are successful. Now, the next question, how do you get successful, is I think we're transitioning to a point where you have to look and see what problems there are in the world and proactively try to go solve them. And now we've been blessed with these tools and all this information that can help you solve these problems quickly. But the people who are going to get rich, like always, are the ones who see the problems and solve them. So there are no junior level positions to learn anymore. You have to skip that and go to a problem solver and then build the system to solve it. To illustrate this, I was talking to a cardiologist last week, super bright guy, very wealthy guy. And he goes, we run all of these EKGs through our system or through our coding company, and they miss all these things, and insurance kicks them back. And then we'd have to argue with them for almost a year to get paid on all these little things. And it's just not worth the hassle to try and get this money. So he goes, I'm probably losing $750,000, $800,000 a year just from these things not going through the right way. And that's where, light bulb goes on, right? So the cardiologist has a problem. We know that AI has optical character readers, so they can scan them. They can extract all the information. AI can justify it, what it's doing. It can then put it in the appropriate format to send it to an insurance company who will then be forced to pay them on the first round, where when they're relying on humans, it's costing them $800,000 a year. So if we have an $800,000 gap, and I promise you, he's not the only one in the world who has this problem. Did we just discover a solution? If we build this app, which we can do in probably 2 weeks at this point, it's not difficult. Can we do this on a closed system to solve this one problem for this specific person? And if we can, we just made ourselves millionaires. And that's what I'm talking about in society. So instead of relying on the government to take care of us, relying on those junior entry-level positions, be a problem solver and put the system in place that all of the big AI LLM companies are telling you to do right now. And that is the key to unlocking the wealth of the world going.
I think that is well said. Critical thinking isn't more important now than ever. Absolutely.
Agree with you completely.
Well, they need to teach that in the younger, in elementary and junior high. They got to get that critical thinking started. So by the time you get to high school and college, you've already developed that.
Oh yeah, totally. We're going to have to totally redo our school system too at some point, because all these kids are using Chat GPT and Claude and all this to get all the answers to it now. So they're not critical thinking. It's worse now than it's ever been.
Right.
And I don't know if you've seen this. Tesla's about to release a robot in-house. So if you ever saw the movie I, Robot, that's basically what Tesla's getting ready to release in about 120 days. Are those? They're about $35,000 right now, those robots. Woo. And they can do everything. So like household chores and cutting the vegetables and all of that, right? And Tesla's technology is amazing if you ever see it, if you've ever even driven in one. The technology, as long as it works, I'll caveat it there, is amazing.
I think the world's going to be so different in 5 years.
In 1 year, right?
In 1 year?
Yeah, it's accelerated. Think about this. In 2023, did you think we'd be living in the world we live in now?
You're right. Yeah.
Right. And so from 2020 to 2022, did you think we'd be living in the world we lived in now?
Yeah.
So
you got a big point there.
Yeah. If we live in that world today, what's tomorrow? And the only people who can figure that out are the ones smart enough to ask that question.
Don't ask me that question.
I
James,
think I know it's coming.
Yeah, right. It has been a pleasure having you on. And I have a feeling that we're going to see some more of you, because I know you have some more stories that we could probably get out of you.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Folks, thank you for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. If you like our content, please like, share, comment, subscribe, whatever button you have, what's your platform that you're watching this on. And definitely look up James and his company. I'm sure he can get you guys seen on Google better than the rest. So thank you so much. You all take care and have a nice day.